Peace, family. Welcome to African Esquire TV. I'm your host, Tony Cherie. Before I get started, if you have not already, please subscribe to my group on Telegram. If you do not know, that is a more decentralized platform that you can share information on, and I share updates on Telegram. In addition, if you have not already, please look for my Odyssey channel. All of these links are down below, but essentially that is sort of like YouTube, but again, more decentralized, so you don't have to worry about censorship. We're going to talk today about something I was so angry that I forgot to discuss last week, because when it happened, I was so enthralled. But the way that I do videos really is that I collect things throughout the week, and then I'll use usually one day to record everything. And it completely slipped my mind that I didn't report this issue. And this is a really big one to me. So you guys should know by now that I am very much someone who is very vocal about the global white supremacist system, particularly when you look at these institutions that are supposed to be representative of all people, but they really benefit the West. So of course, I talk about the IMF a lot. I talk the WTO, talk about the World Bank. These are the big institutions. They're called the Bretton Woods institutions. And these are the ones that really are the governing force of neocolonialism today. You might not have the formal colonialism, being that there's like an actual written out relationship between the colonial powers and the colonized. But what you do have today is something that's very much more slick than the original type of colonialism, because it finds backdoor ways to achieve the same purposes and does not have to be accountable, because what you see that your leader is corrupt. You see that your leader is taking money. You see that your leader is selling out the people, but you're not necessarily conditioned to think about who's actually selling, who's he selling out to, who's paying him, who's endorsing the policies that he is seeking. So that's what we have to start doing if we're going to actually be serious about decolonization. But this was very promising, because there was a protest in Kenya over the IMF, because essentially the IMF, the way that they work is they just give loans and loans and loans and loans to developing countries. We're going to speak about African countries in this instance. So they give loans and loans and loans to African countries. These loans cannot be paid off. These loans cannot be paid off. It's impossible. You're talking about a people who were colonized, and then right after that, they were hit with an onslaught of policies that destabilized their economies. These people cannot catch up with them because of the nature of the stipulations that are put on the loans. You know, they said you have to privatize all your industries. You have to liberalize your economy, basically saying you have to allow our businesses to come into your economy and take over the local businesses, ensure that our businesses receive preferential treatment, and most importantly, that our people can export anything that we need from your country with low tariffs, so that we can, or no tariffs, so that we can go and take your resources and go back to where we're from and produce these things, iPhones, produce smartphones, produce gadgets, all those types of things, furniture, whatever. And then our tires, if you think about the cars on your tires, those a lot of times come from Liberia. We produce these things, and then you're going to get sold back the complete product to your country, but it's going to be so inflated that only a certain amount of people can afford it. So this is how the perverse relationship works. The IMF is probably the biggest perpetrator inside of this system, and Kenyans are becoming, very vocal about the IMF. And that's something that you don't hear very often. Let's talk about this issue. It says, in many countries, the willingness of global institutions like the International Monetary Fund to beef up the state coffers with a loan is seen as a sign of approval, meaning a lot of people, their country gets approved for a loan and they're like, yay, we get a loan, right? That's what people do when they're not understanding of what these loans are. It shows that economists in faraway Washington have confidence in the country and can afford and properly manage the interest payments. But this is not how some Kenyans see things. They do not want the IMF to give the country any more money. The Kenyans on Twitter, in the Twitter community, also known as KOT, are a force to be reckoned with. They have been compared to a swarm of bees who attack in a group and sting repeatedly until the issue is resolved or a bigger issue emerges that distracts them. This is BBC, y'all, just so y'all know. Consequently, on Monday, at the tail end of Easter weekend, the KOT turned their attention to the IMF. 2 days previously, it had been announced that a loan of more than $2.3 billion, which is 1.7 billion euros, was approved to support Kenya's pandemic response and economic reform program. The IMF announcement came on the heels of a survey that showed that 4 out of 5 Kenyans felt anxious, fearful, or angry because of the debt burden. Hence the Twitter storm. And by the end of Monday, hashtag Stop Giving Kenya Loans was one of the trending hashtags here. People were also being encouraged to sign a petition. This was a reference to an online campaign aimed at urging the IMF to withdraw the offer, with people arguing that the previous loans had not been used in a prudent manner. Obviously, the loans are not being used in a prudent manner because we see the conditions of the masses of Kenyans. Yes, I'm sure there's a very small class that are very much enjoying the riches of the colonial system, but the masses of the people are not. The masses of the people are exploited, and they're the ones that you are hearing saying, stop taking loans from these institutions. And what I want to see is hashtag Africa stop taking loans, not just Kenya stop taking loans, because this is the entire continent of Africa. The takeaway should be that whenever these institutions are giving loans and loans to countries that they know are poor, that they know have been destabilized by colonialism and neocolonialism, whenever they're doing that, they're not doing that with the intention of you actually being able to pay back the loans. Think about all the loans that have been taken inside of individual African countries. How much of that money has actually trickled down to the people? Almost none of it. I would say probably none of it. You can probably make an argument that some of the loans were used to build a road or something like that. But ultimately, the people are left without any benefit from the billions of dollars that have been given to the African continent as a whole. So there has to be a critical response. And I'm happy that in Kenya, we're seeing that. But more on a global scale, we have to critically assess, why is the IMF still able to just keep giving loans? And why is that a situation that we encourage? If you think about the way that it works, first of all, the debt works as a bargaining chip. Obviously, if you owe millions and billions of dollars to a certain institution or to individual Western powers, we know that your ways of moving are going to be very much determined by your debtors. So if you're in that situation, you might not take stances that are going to derail that relationship. You might do things that are going to be contrary to the interests of the people. But the biggest issue is that you're not going to be able to repay those loans. Instead, you're going to give license to the International Monetary Fund's countries that are prevalent in there, obviously the US and different European countries, to come in and tell you how to run your economy. All of these things are detrimental. All of these things go completely contrary to our interests. And so again, let's see more people calling this out, because it is a big situation. It's a big issue. And the more that we start understanding and analyzing these institutions, the quicker we'll be able to truly decolonize our continent, and also our individual countries that are also subjected, whether you're in the Caribbean, for example. So that's all I have for this. I would love to see your guys' comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.
A poem for us. The African woman. Beautiful, dark, luxurious, fearless, selfless, power. Through all the words thrown our way, we are the beautiful source. Discarded, disrespected, but highly favored and replicated. We are her, she is us. The African woman. Uncompromising, steadfast, and unwavering in love. Innocent, playful, generous, and deserving. We are African women. At home and abroad, we are delicious melanin, splendid carbon. We drink ourselves to death with love and compassion, forgiving and thorough. We are African women. Join us in May for our symposium on Pan-African women.
Hey family, this is Tierney Cherie. I'm here to make an announcement that I'm very, very excited to make. I'm excited because I really think this is something that is important for our people. Otherwise, I would not have devoted so much time and energy towards it. So I finished my first book, and the book title is Fostering False Identity, the Child Welfare System's Design of Social Control of the Black Family. Now, why is this book something that I think will be very important for our community? Well, number one, it's dealing with the system of white supremacy, particularly the way that the system has targeted our children. If you don't know, our children are literally our future. Without our children, we have no future. And so understand that the system is very crafty when figuring out what to derail first. And to me, it's no mistake that the system particularly went after the Black family. If you look at what happened whenever we were enslaved by this system, and continues to go after the Black family, continues to go after Black children, continues to try to villainize African parents. So for that, I wanted to particularly talk about this subject. Now, the other thing that the book will deal with is our African identities. Why is it that our African identities are a threat to this system? Why is it that whenever we want to identify ourselves as being African, we get so much drawback inside of the Black community? I think a lot of us are not aware of the history of assimilationist thought inside of our community, this idea that we have to be close to white in order to be accepted. And so that's another subject that we delve into in this book. So I'm hoping that anyone who is, obviously, if you're a parent, a Black parent, and you really want to understand why it is that these systems are going after your children, I encourage you to read this book. I hope that it will arm you with a lot of knowledge and a lot of foresight, not just about how to protect your own children, but how to organize in your community, because that's really the purpose of the book, is to say that we have to organize among ourselves in order to protect ourselves from this white supremacist system. And then obviously, if you're an organizer in general, this is something that I think is important for you to read, because like I said, this is a subject in the Black community that we just don't discuss enough. Child welfare is not something that is going to get enough attention. People, obviously, will organize them around other causes, but this is one that is really important that I feel like we have to pay more attention to.